People, welcome back to the channel. This is a story in which Naruto learns Fuinjutsu and is shown to have great talent in it, being an Uzumaki. How will this change the story? Well, we will see it now. Before we begin, please hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoy my content. So let us begin. Chapter 11. Naruto was now walking towards the one place he wanted to avoid at all cost, the Hyuga household. After Lee was carried out of the arena by the medics after having his leg and arm crushed by Gaara, Sarutobi announced that the next part of the Chunin exams would take part after a month, allowing the participants enough time to learn a new trick. They passed around a bag that held a number, and that number would determine who they would face. Naruto ended up facing Neji in the very first match. After that, Naruto went to visit Hinata in the hospital, but that was when he saw two Hyugas standing guard. Before Naruto could backtrack, Hiashi came out with a stern look on his face. He looked at Naruto with what appeared to be a slight glare in his eyes. "We need to talk." With that, the guards and Hiashi walked out. Naruto just walked into Hinata's room to see her with a guilty look in her eyes. "Your father seems pleasant," Naruto said as he entered the room. Hinata looked at Naruto and smiled. "He wasn't happy about keeping you and me a secret." Hinata watched as Naruto just sat down next to her. "He wanted me to tell him what happened between us." Hinata looked away from Naruto for a little, but looked back. "I'm sorry, I should have kept the picture hidden. I told you that it was alright." Naruto just leaned back in the chair with a smile. "Besides, I wanted you to keep the picture with you. That way, if you were in trouble, you could always look back and remember that day." Hinata blushed a little and smiled. "Look, I need to get going, your father wants to talk to me." Hinata looked at Naruto with worried eyes. "Don't worry, I promise I'll be careful." Naruto reached forward and gave her a kiss before leaving the blushing Hyuga alone. Naruto made it to the front entrance of the house and saw two Hyuga guards standing in front of the gate. Before Naruto could speak, one of the Hyuga guards beat him to it. "Hiashi is already waiting for you." The guard made a motion for Naruto to follow. Naruto did, and as he was walking around the Hyuga grounds, he noticed how beautiful the landscape was. It was covered in flowers of different colors, making the place look like a rainbow. Naruto almost bumped into the guard that was escorting him. "Hiashi is in here." The guard gestured at the door in front of him. Naruto nodded and thanked the guard, to which the guard gave a slight nod before walking away. Naruto was about to give the door a knock when Hiashi spoke. "Come," was his only response. Naruto entered the room and found himself staring at Hiashi, but he wasn't the only one in the room. Another, but very elderly Hyuga was also there. He looked and saw Naruto, and a deep glare entered his eyes. "Father, we'll continue this later, but right now I need to have a talk with a certain someone." Hiashi's father nodded his head and left with Hiashi right behind him. When his father left, Hiashi shut the door and locked it. Hiashi turned around without looking at Naruto and took his seat right in front of Naruto. "Sit." Naruto did just that and sat in front of the Hyuga. For a couple of minutes the two just stared at each other, looking into the other's eyes. "I see you've been dating my daughter behind my back." Hiashi looked a little angry and disappointment. "Could you explain why you didn't inform me?" "Hiashi-sama, we planned on telling you." Naruto said this with a careful tone in his voice. "But between the missions and the Chunin exams we didn't have time." "I see, but why didn't you ask me for permission to date her?" Hiashi watched as Naruto just looked at the ground. "I want to know when you started to date her." Naruto looked up. "One day before team placements." Hiyashi's eyes visible widened, but only for a second. "That's when Hinata started to train harder." Hiashi thought. "Again I ask, why did you not ask me for permission? I guess it just slipped my mind." Hiashi activated his Byakugan. "Between missions and trying to keep this secret, I just didn't have the time to go to you." Hiashi kept his Byakugan active, which made Naruto a little nervous. "Hiashi-sama, why are you looking at me with your Byakugan? Because I'll be able to tell when you lie." Hiashi said this with a dangerous tone in his voice. "I don't know what you did to Hinata, but from what you said, the day you started to date her, she began to improve on her training. She began to train harder and her confidence has gone up quite a bit. Now, from what I've been able to see, you've not been lying to me since we started this conversation. That, combined with the fact Hinata told me the same thing, leads me to believe you. Now that is the only reason why I'm letting you continue to see my daughter." Naruto eased up a little and let out a breath he was holding. That was when Hiashi stared at Naruto without even blinking. I'm giving you a chance here, Uzumaki, but that doesn't mean you're safe. I'm going to watch every move you make, every breath you take, and every sight you see. If I see you screw up even for a single instant, I will rip you apart. Get the picture. Hiashi watched as Naruto nodded his head slowly. Good, now run along, I have more important things to deal with than you. Hiashi turned back to some papers, but Naruto thought he saw a smile on the Hyuga's face. Right. Naruto stood up and went to the door, but before he left he said on last thing. Hinata is lucky to have a father that cares about her like you do. Hiashi looked at Naruto only to see he wasn't there. The tone in Naruto's voice was honest and held no sarcasm in it. Hiashi just shook his head and turned back to his paperwork, but took a small glance at a photo of his wife, Hinata, himself, and Hanabi smiling. Take care of her, Uzumaki. Hiashi thought. XXX Nami no Kuni. Tazuna was busy laughing with a bunch of people including Haku about the success of the bridge when two strangers came across the bridge wearing black cloaks with hoods. Welcome, how may we help you? Tazuna was smiling. The two looked at each other and smiled. Or surprised you don't remember us. Tazuna was confused at that. At any rate you can help us. We're looking for a certain man that used to live here. Oh, and who would that be? Tazuna said while he looked at Haku, who was slowly putting his hand down to his sanban. We're looking for one of Akidat the Fallen. Tazuna's eyes widened and that was all Haku needed. He flew through hand signs and before the two could react they were encased in ice that went to their necks. The force of the sudden freeze was enough to send the hoods off their heads. Tazuna rubbed his eyes, not sure he was seeing the two correctly. What, finally remember us, Tazuna? If not, let's introduce ourselves once more. My name is Denpa. Denpa smiled as he looked at Tazuna's shocked face. And I'm Ashiki. Ashiki just looked at Tazuna with a mild expression. Tazuna looked at both of them with surprise. I thought you two died. Tazuna just watched as the two began to laugh. What do you want? We already told you, Tazuna. Denpa said in an almost animal-like voice. We want to know where he is. Tazuna just looked at the two with mellow eyes. XXX, alright, you want me to train you? Jiraiya said as he looked at Naruto, who had one eyebrow raised. Well, yes. Naruto looked around. You said you're a Fuinjutsu master and I'm having problems with my seals consuming too much chakra. So can you help me? Jiraiya looked dumbfounded. Of course I can, I'm the great Jiraiya. Jiraiya said this as he began to do a little dance. In just this month, kid, I'm going to give you a lot more than more control over your Fuinjutsu, but first we need to get you to control your chakra. Jiraiya clapped his hands together and was surrounded by smoke. When the smoke cleared, Jiraiya was sitting on a toad with a scroll in its mouth. First I need you to sign this summoning contract. As Jiraiya said this, the toad gently laid the contract on the ground in front of Naruto. Now first you need to sign your name in blood. Naruto bit his finger and wrote his name next to Jiraiya's. Alright, now put some blood on the hand you signed the contract with, do the correct hand signs, and then slam your hand on the ground. Naruto nodded his head and went through the hand signs and then slammed his hand on the ground. Naruto and Jiraiya's vision was obscured by smoke, but when it cleared, Naruto and Jiraiya looked at the creature in shock. A tadpole. Jiraiya yelled out. You really don't have any sort control over your chakra, do you? Hey, I told you I wasn't good at chakra control. Naruto yelled back. That's why I need your help in controlling it. Jiraiya looked at the Hokage's mountain and looked straight at Minato's head. Alright, I'll help you with your chakra control. Jiraiya had his back turned to Naruto. But first, have you ever felt another form of chakra inside of you? Jiraiya looked at Naruto, who visible flinched as if he remembered something he wished he could forget. Once. Naruto mumbled. Okay, I want you to try and tap into that power. Jiraiya watched as Naruto looked at him with a clueless expression. You don't know how to tap into it, do you? Sorry, the only time I used it was when I was during a mission and I thought Sasuke died. Naruto said with a shrug of his shoulder. What did you feel? Jiraiya asked in an attempt to figure out how Naruto used the Kyabe's chakra. I felt scared for my life a little, but mostly I felt angry. Naruto looked at Jiraiya with a kind smile. So he can only access the Kyabe's chakra in a stressful situation. Jiraiya rubbed his chin in thought before coming up with an idea. If Minato ever found out what I was about to do, he would kill me, but I have no choice. If I can get Naruto to tap into Kyuubi's chakra by himself, then he will be that much safer. Jiraiya made a motion for Naruto to follow him and Naruto did. After walking for a few minutes, Jiraiya stopped in the middle of the forest. Why did we stop? Naruto asked. I'm going to force you to draw on that other power. Jiraiya turned around and looked Naruto in the eyes. Only then can I help you further. Before Naruto could respond, Jiraiya put a finger on his forehead and flicked. Naruto was sent flying through the woods and leaves until he was above a chasm lined with sharp rocks. Shit. Naruto thought as he fell backwards towards the unknown chasm bottom. Naruto unraveled his right hand to reveal his wind seal, but when he went to activate it, nothing happened. I placed a seal on you to stop you from using your seals. Came Jiraiya's voice. The only way out for you is to use the other chakra and then the Kuchio's no Jutsu summoning technique. Jiraiya watched as Naruto focused some of his chakra into his hand and grabbed one of the rocks, but his hand slid right off. It's no use with your chakra control, you can't grip the slippery rocks. Naruto gritted his teeth as he knew he was in trouble. Naruto closed his eyes and braced himself for the impact that was sure to come, but instead Naruto opened his eyes to see a large hallway with water up to his ankles. He heard something coming from the darkness and decided to investigate. When Naruto finally got out of the hallway, he found himself in front of a giant cage with a tag that had kanji on it for seal. Soon Naruto saw two red eyes appear in front of him. Come closer. And despite every instinct that told him not to, Naruto approached the cage, but as soon as he was close enough to touch the bars, a giant clone was thrust at him. Naruto fell backwards to avoid being hit with the massive claw. Naruto stood up and heard the giant fox begin to growl in frustration. Damn it, if it wasn't for this seal I would be devouring you now. Kyuubi growled out, clearly upset about the situation. Seal. Naruto thought as he looked at the gate. I get it now, that little piece of paper is like the padlock while the main seal is the gate. Kyuubi lowered himself to the ground and looked Naruto in the eye. What do you want, pathetic bearer? Naruto just raised his eyebrow and frowned. So you're the Kyuubi. Naruto watched as Kyuubi leaned back as if it was smacked, but before the great Biju could speak. Look, I know we could stay here and argue for a while, but the truth of the matter is that we don't have the time. Now give me your chakra before we both die at the end of this chasm, or I could just walk into that cage and beat it out of you. Kyuubi growled, but then turned his mouth into some sort of smile. You have spunk, I'll give you that. Naruto watched as red chakra seemed to flow out from the cage and surround him. As a reward for making it this far, I shall give you my chakra. The chakra slammed onto Naruto and Naruto opened his mouth in a silent scream before he was pushed out of his mind. He has your attitude, Kushina. Kyuubi growled out the name as if it was poison. But I'll be damned before I allow another Uzumaki to subdue me. Naruto opened his eyes again to see the darkness of the chasm, but something else was there. Power was surging through Naruto like wildfire. This is it. Naruto cried out as he bit his thumb and began to throw his arm forward and pushed his chakra out. Naruto and the chasm was consumed in smoke as Jiraiya tried to get a closer look. When the smoke cleared, both Naruto and Jiraiya got one hell of a shock. Naruto was on top of a toad's head, but this one was about the size of a village. What the? The toad looked around confused. What the hell is going on? The toad bellowed this out, which forced Naruto forward and onto the toad's nose. The toad looked at the boy on his nose with a glare. Who the hell are you? My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto stood up and smiled at the toad. And I'm the one who summoned you. The toad continued to stare at Naruto until it began to laugh. What's so funny? You being able to summon me. The toad said in between laughs. Do you have any idea who I am? I'm Gamabunta, the chief toad. There is no way a weakling could. Gamabunta stopped when Naruto jumped and sat on his head. What are you doing? Well, there is no point in arguing with you if you believe I didn't summon you. Naruto gripped the toad tighter. But the truth of the matter is that I'm the only one in this deep dark chasm besides you. So unless you want to stay down here and argue, how about we get out of here? Gamabunta opened his mouth to retort, but with a quick look around he noticed the predicament they were in. Fine, but you better hang on. Gamabunta gripped the rock as tightly as he could before jumping. Naruto was slammed by the force of the jump and nearly lost conciseness. Jiraiya jumped back as he watched Gamabunta nearly crush him, but before he could get away he heard Gamabunta's voice. Jiraiya, why did you summon me in that wretched hell hole? Gamabunta booming voice made the trees shake as Jiraiya turned around with a nervous smile. Well, you see, I didn't summon you. Jiraiya pointed at Naruto. He did. Instead of getting laughter, Gamabunta glared at Jiraiya, who jumped out of the Chief Toad's hand. There is no way a punk-ass brat summoned me. Gamabunta yelled this out, but realized Naruto was still on his head. Gamabunta turned his eyes upwards to see what he was doing and found Naruto relaxing on top of his head. What are you doing? Naruto looked at Gamabunta and pretended to rub sleep from his eyes. What are you two done arguing? Naruto stretched his arms and jumped down. Well, I guess I'll see ya later, big man. You truly expect me to believe that you summoned me? Gamabunta watched as Naruto smiled. You know what, prove it. Gamabunta jumped faster than Jiraiya could react and caught the Toad Hermit with his tongue. I'll be taking Jiraiya here with me, and then and only then if you summon me again I'll believe it. And before Naruto could speak, Gamabunta vanished, taking Jiraiya with him in a cloud of smoke. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked around at the empty space. Why is it so hard for people to believe me? Naruto bit his thumb again and began to try and pull on Kyabe's power. After getting some of the Biju's chakra, Naruto slammed his hand on the ground. Naruto vanished in a puff of smoke, and when it cleared, Gamabunta was back looking around confused with Jiraiya still wrapped up. Now do you believe me? Gamabunta looked up and saw Naruto standing on his head once again. You see, Gamabunta, he did summon you. Jiraiya gently pried himself out of Gamabunta's tongue. So if you want to hurt anyone, hurt him. Gamabunta looked at Jiraiya once again and wrapped his tongue around his leg. Jiraiya looked down as Gamabunta slammed Jiraiya towards the ground. But it's still your fault for giving him the summoning scroll. Gamabunta looked down at Jiraiya, who was seeing stars at the moment. Okay, brat, you summoned me, big deal. If you summon me again in such a position again, I will hurt you. With that, Gamabunta vanished in a puff of smoke, leaving Naruto to land on his feet. Naruto walked over and smiled at Jiraiya, who glared at the blonde. So what's next? Naruto jumped just as Jiraiya threw a punch at him. Hey, don't get angry with me, you're the one who gave me the summoning contract. Yes, but you're the one who summoned Gamabunta. Jiraiya ran at Naruto in an attempt to hurt the blonde, but was stopped when an Anbu appeared in between the two. The council wishes to see Naruto Uzumaki immediately. The fox-masked Anbu looked at Naruto, who just stared right back, confused. XXX. Naruto and Jiraiya entered the council room and everything went quiet. Jiraiya looked at Sarutobi with a confused face, and Sarutobi just shrugged, equally as confused. Okay, council, you called this meeting for what reason? Sarutobi looked around until he saw one of the civilian council members stand. We're here to discuss the special situation of Naruto Uzumaki, he said, but when he looked at Naruto he had a smile, but Naruto could tell he was angry at him. Yes, the situation is he is the Jinchuriki of. Sarutobi was cut off by his old friend and rival. That's not it. Danzo stood up and looked at Naruto with his one eye before quickly looking away. We're here to discuss his position as the last of the Uzumaki clan. Sarutobi gritted his teeth as Jiraiya glared at Danzo. What, did you really think you could keep this from the council, Sarutobi? Okay, what is it that the council wants to do with Naruto? Sarutobi looked around, but no one else stood up except for Danzo. I suggest that the boy be taken and kept under watch 24/7 to better protect him. Danzo once again looked at Naruto, who glared at the War Hawk. I also think it is about time that he is trained properly in his specialty until comes a time when he can better protect himself. His movements outside the village should also be limited as well. Some of the council members nodded their heads. He is still after Naruto. Sarutobi clenched his teeth until a voice spoke up. I'm afraid I can't allow that. Sarutobi said this, and almost immediately an uproar came from the council. You clearly don't understand the situation here, Sarutobi. Danzo said, refocusing his attention back on his rival. There is a lot of people out there that would love to get their hands on the last Uzumaki, and to make it even more tempting to kidnap him, he is the Jinchuriki to the Kyuubi. If we let him wander around without proper training, then he will be easily captured or killed. I could take him and give him all the training he would need in order to survive outside these walls. Before Sarutobi could respond, however, someone beat him to it. No, thank you. Everyone looked at Naruto, who was leaning against a wall with a scowl on his face. For years I have been on my own, having to survive without anyone's help. So what makes you think I need your help now? Naruto looked at each council members who just watched him. You don't care about me as a person. The only reason you give a damn about me is because of what I am. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, last surviving member of the Uzumaki clan and Jinchuriki of Kyuubi no Kitsune, but I would bet if I wasn't any of those things you wouldn't give a shit about me. So I'll say this again, I don't need your protection. Naruto turned to leave, but was stopped by Danzo. I don't think the meeting has been dismissed, boy. Danzo watched as Naruto turned around with a smile. I think I just dismissed it. Naruto opened the door and slammed it shut behind him. Hiashi stood up at that precise moment and went to leave. With the object of this meeting gone, I think it is over. Hiashi left and the council meeting was over in an instant. Everything said in this meeting is to be kept secret. If I find out you said something. Sarutobi just left the threat in the air. XXX Naruto was walking around until he saw Hiashi looking at him. Hello again, Hiashi-sama. Hiashi just gave a tiny blink to say he heard Naruto. What do you want this time, if I may ask? Hinata is being released from the hospital in a little bit. Hiashi spoke in a calm voice. She knows to come to the Hyuga Manor first. The direction you were going suggests you were going to the hospital, am I correct? Naruto nodded his head with a slight smile. May I ask why? Well, I wanted to see how she was doing. Hiashi's eyes narrowed a little bit. And I wanted to walk her back to the Hyuga Manor and then ask you something. Well, I just saved you the walk, now ask your question. Hiashi watched Naruto rub his hands together in a slight nervous manner. Hiashi-sama, I wish to ask permission to take your daughter Hinata out on a date. Naruto finished this while looking at Hiashi in the eyes. Hiashi looked Naruto up and down. Asking permission this time, I see. Hiashi watched as Naruto nodded his head. She is going to rest and speak with me at the manor until 6. You can pick her up then, but she is to return at 7:30 and not a minute later, understand me, boy? Naruto remembered the conversation he and Hiashi had before and nodded his head. Very good, now once again run along, I have other matters to attend to. Naruto gave a bow and ran off with a smile on his face while thinking where to take Hinata. Hey people, before we start the next chapter, the like goal for the next part is 15 likes. Complete the like goal so that I will upload the next part within 24 hours. Now that that is done, let us begin. Chapter 12. Naruto was walking towards the Hyuga Manor before the guards stepped in front of him. I have permission to take Hinata Hyuga out on a date. Naruto looked between the two. If you don't believe me, ask Hiashi-sama. Naruto gestured behind the two, who turned to see Hiashi looking at them. The two gave Hiashi a deep bow and Hiashi only motioned for Naruto to follow him. Naruto did just that, but not before giving the two guards a kind smile. Hinata is in her room getting ready. Hiashi walked with his back to Naruto, but Naruto had a feeling he had his Byakugan active. She is to return by 7:30, remember this. Hiashi once again adopted a dangerous tone in his voice. I understand, Hiashi-sama. Naruto said with a bow of his head. Hiashi stopped dead in his tracks and looked at Naruto with a slight glare. No, I don't think you understand. This confused Naruto. Hinata is the heir to the Hyuga clan and as such she is to be treated with respect. I'll go ahead and say this. I don't rather enjoy having her date you. Is it because of? Naruto was cut off by Hiashi raising his hand. It has nothing to do with that. Hiashi turned fully around and looked directly at Naruto. It is to do with you attitude. You only get one chance to make an impression, Uzumaki, and yours was a clown who played pranks on everyone. I don't like it that my daughter has a crush on you, but if it helps to get her stronger then I will stay out of it. Naruto nodded, but stopped when Hiashi grabbed his shirt. But I warn you for the last time. If you hurt her, if she comes home crying, or she has one cut on her, I will make you suffer. Naruto gulped, but footsteps coming down the stairs made Hiashi let go of Naruto. He turned to see Hinata in a nice little kimono that had flowers all along the bottom edges of it. Naruto just smiled at Hinata and mouthed the word beautiful to her, making her blush. Father. Hinata said, looking at her father, who looked back at her. Remember what I told you, Hinata. Hiashi turned his body sideways and let Hinata through. Naruto offered Hinata his arm and Hinata took it with a smile. Hiashi watched as the two left and he couldn't help but smile a little. She is growing up into beautiful and strong young lady. Hiashi looked up at the sky and smiled. XXX unknown location. Ashiki leaned backwards and popped his back and arms as he groaned. He looked at his arm and saw that he was bleeding rather fast from a huge gash. That guy got me good, bro. Ashiki turned around to see Denpa setting the bodies of 20 ninja ablaze. Denpa turned around and in his hand he held a dagger. The hilt to the dagger was blue and the guard was in the shape of a vortex. Well, stitch it up, we need to get going. Denpa sheathed his blade and walked to the giant fortress-like structure. I wonder if he'll be happy to see us again. Ashiki just shook his head while wrapping up his arm. Denpa pushed on the door and it swung open, revealing a barely lit hallway. Denpa and Ashiki walked down the hallway until they got to the door that they promptly blew open. The pair entered the room and saw what appeared to be a cage hanging above the floor wrapped in steel chains with seals all over it. Whoa, they really don't want him out, do they? Ashiki just grunted and ducked as a giant sword came swinging at his neck. The brothers looked up to see a mountain of a man swinging a sword that easily dwarfed both Ashiki and Denpa together. You have killed my comrades and have attempted to free a prisoner. The man said as he lifted his sword with ease. The punishment is death. The man charged, but before he got within a few feet a very long blade shot out of Denpa's clothes and nailed the man in his chest. You should speak less and attack more. Was the only response Denpa gave before the man collapsed. Denpa looked at his brother and motioned for him to continue. Ashiki approached the center of the room and threw a kunai with a tag tied to it at the cage. When the kunai hit, the tag began to glow and spread down the kunai and around the cage. Suddenly, without warning, the chains broke and the cage fell. Ashiki stepped back and watched as the cage hit the ground and left a crater. The seals around the cage began to disappear until they were no longer there. Ashiki leaned forward and opened the door to reveal a man with black hair and blue eyes chained to the wall of the cage with chakra suppression seals written all over him. Well, how have you been? Ashiki stated as he walked towards the man who smiled weakly. Tazuna told us you got captured, but didn't exactly know where you were taken. Good thing I'm good at persuading people to give me information. I thought you died, was all he said before his head slumped. Yeah, me and my brother get that a lot. Ashiki said this as he cut the chains holding him to the wall. The man fell to the ground and tried to stand, but fell down again. It would seem these seals are draining your stamina as well. Ashiki picked the man up with a smile on his face. So how was your vacation? The man looked at Ashiki with a glare in his deep gray eyes which made Ashiki laugh. Suddenly the prison began to rock and shake, making the three look around in surprise. Shit. They all said at the same time. The explosion could be seen 3 miles away as a pillar of light. XXX Naruto and Hinata was having a great time except for the few people who glared and muttered hate-filled words at Naruto. Hinata looked at Naruto, who just kept on smiling even though everyone was looking at him in disgust. What did Naruto do that was so bad? Hinata thought as they approached their destination, Ichiraku Ramen. Chuki turned around and smiled at his best customer. Naruto, how have you been? Chuki didn't notice Hinata for a few seconds. Oh, hello, I'm Chuki and you're R. Hinata bowed her head slightly with a smile. Hinata Hyuga. Chuki smiled at the couple and called to Ayame. What's wrong, father? Ayame looked and saw Naruto with his arm around a blushing Hinata. Oh, you two look so cute together. This made the two blush harder. So what can we get you two? Well, I would like 4 bowls of miso ramen to go. This surprised the two, making Naruto explain himself. Hinata and me are having a picnic with our favorite foods. We already got hers, we just need to get mine and then we're off. The two nodded their heads with broad smiles and went to prepare the order. When they came back, the food was all wrapped up in a bag that trapped the heat inside to keep the food warm. Naruto grabbed the bag and sealed it into his storage seal on his left arm. Bye guys, you have a nice day. Naruto and Hinata waved at the two, who smiled and waved back. XXX Naruto and Hinata kept walking until they were in a forest surrounded by flowers, trees, and a beautiful waterfall could be seen in front of them. Naruto unsealed the food that he and Hinata got from the stories and unfolded a picnic blanket for them to eat on. This is just so beautiful, Naruto. Hinata grabbed a can of red bean soup with a smile. I know, but it's still not as beautiful as you. Naruto looked at Hinata and saw her blush as red as fire. Naruto ate his ramen with a smile as birds began to chirp all around the two. Naruto laid his bowl of ramen down and laid back. This is so peaceful. Naruto looked at Hinata, who seemed to be distracted by something. What's wrong, Hinata? Hinata looked at Naruto then back at the ground. Naruto, why did they do it? Naruto looked at Hinata with a confused expression. What do you mean? Naruto watched as Hinata turned around and looked at him in the eyes. Why does the villagers look and say things with such hate in their voice when they look at you? Hinata watched as Naruto seemed to have adopted a depressed expression in his eyes. I'm sorry if it's personal, Naruto. Naruto suddenly smiled even though it was a sad smile. It's okay, Hinata. Naruto sat up and looked at her. But at the moment I can't tell you. Why not? Hinata asked confused. Because I don't know how to say it yet. Naruto looked at the ground and looking at the food he and Hinata ate. The only thing left was 2 bowls of ramen and some wrapped up cinnamon buns. Naruto looked up at the sky and noticed that it was getting late. Come on, it's time to go. Naruto looked at Hinata and saw that she had a sad look in her eyes. I promise we'll go out again, but at the moment I think I need to earn your father's trust. Hinata nodded her head and got up. Naruto sealed everything back into his arm and took hold of Hinata's hand while she leaned her head into his shoulder. XXX Naruto arrived at the Hyuga Manor with Hinata with 1 minute to spare. Good night, Hinata. Naruto gave Hinata a kiss while pressing something into her hands. Naruto turned and waved at Hinata just as her father came out of the house. Cutting it close, Uzumaki. Hiashi narrowed his eyes as Naruto smiled like a fox. Hiashi looked at Hinata and saw her holding a cloth that was wrapped around something round. What did he give you, Hinata? Hinata opened the bag and what she found made her squeal in delight. He gave me the cinnamon buns we didn't finish. Hinata held up the cloth and sure enough 4 cinnamon buns were there. So he did. Hiashi reached out and pulled a little piece off the bun and ate it. It is not poisoned. Hiashi turned around to make sure his daughter didn't see the smile. Hinata wasn't convinced. She knew her father liked cinnamon buns, maybe not to her degree, but he enjoyed them. Hinata poked her father to get his attention and handed him one of the cinnamon buns. This is for letting Naruto date me. Hiashi took the bun and watched Hinata walk away and he smiled as he took a small bite out of the bun. XXX Naruto was sitting on a rock when Jiraiya came out of the woods with a perverted grin. What did you do this time, Ero-sensei? Jiraiya suddenly snapped out of his stupor and glared at Naruto. I told never to call me that. Jiraiya yelled out. Yeah, so are you going to help me? Naruto crossed his arms and watched Jiraiya sit down. Okay, so what do you want me to teach you? Jiraiya watched as Naruto stood up in a flash. I want you to help me with my chakra control. Naruto looked at Jiraiya with fire in his eyes. I want you to help me stop using so much chakra in my Fuinjutsu. Jiraiya motioned for Naruto to calm down. Okay, just let me take a look and see what the problem is. Naruto undid one of his bandages and showed Jiraiya his right arm seal. Jiraiya scanned over the seal and his eyes steadily widened in surprise. I never seen a seal network like this, kid. You have so many different networks running in and out, I don't know which is causing the problem. Naruto's eyes looked downward with a small amount of depressing. So you can't help me. Naruto took his arm back and started to wrap his bandages when Jiraiya spoke up. I may be able to give you a temporary solution. Jiraiya took Naruto's arm again and looked at the seal. It's a seal that helps with chakra control. It limits the amount of chakra you can use, almost like closing a pipeline being shut off. The only drawback to this is if you end up forcing the chakra through, the seal will break apart and do you some harm. Do you want to give it a try? Naruto thought about it and nodded his head. Jiraiya nodded his head and began to go to work drawing the necessary seals on Naruto. This is crude work for sure. Jiraiya thought as he had Naruto remove his shirt revealing his bandaged torso. If only Kushina was here, she would be able to tell what Naruto's doing wrong. I may be a seal master, but the way the Uzumaki go about doing seals is still a mystery to me. XXX month later, the finalists were all inside a giant arena waiting for the go-ahead to fight, but the problem was that Sasuke wasn't here yet. Then 2 others wasn't here was Kankuro, who quit for some unknown reason, and Dosu, who disappeared, which made the proctors change the fighting order a little. Sasuke was now fighting Shino while Gaara fought the winner of Shikamaru and Temari's battle. Alright, it is time to begin. Genma was looking around at the group. What about Sasuke? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. If he isn't here by the time his match starts, then he forfeits his match. Genma looked at the crowd and began to speak. The first match will be Naruto Uzumaki vs Neji Hyuga. The crowd began to cheer. Neji stepped and looked at Naruto with a smirk. It is fate that I'll be victorious. Neji watched Naruto just shake his head with a frown. I'm sorry to say, but I don't believe in fate. Naruto just moved his neck around, popping it. I believe that you make your own choices and take your own path. That is why I'll be Hokage one day. You Hokage, don't be absurd, someone like you will never be Hokage. Naruto's eyes hardened as he looked at Neji while he took off his bandages off his arms and neck. So you're really going to try your Fuinjutsu on me? Naruto didn't answer, just slipped into a neat taijutsu stance. You're going to fight me in close combat, you really must want to lose. Naruto didn't answer, just waited for the go-ahead. Begin. Genma jumped back and watched the two go at each other. Naruto launched himself forward, heading straight for Neji. Neji smiled and dropped into his gentle fist stance. When Naruto got within a few feet, Neji lunged at Naruto's face only for Naruto to spin on his heel and dodge the attack. Neji turned and saw Naruto's hand reaching for him and panic gripped Neji's heart as he dodged, narrowly dodging the hand. Neji back-flipped out of Naruto's reach and glared at the blonde, who gently lowered his hand. It would seem you learned to avoid getting touched by me. Naruto watched as Neji glared at him. But avoiding me is just as dangerous. Naruto reached towards his left arm and out in a puff of smoke came the giant shuriken. Naruto swung the shuriken over Neji's head, making him smirk. It would appear that you need to practice your aim. Neji watched as Naruto smiled, which chilled Neji to the core. I wasn't aiming for you. Naruto placed his hands together in a seal. Fuinjutsu. Hisumirashi Renda. Neji watched as the shuriken began to shoot out hundreds of kunai, but Neji quickly dodged them and continued to smirk at Naruto. I wouldn't smile. This confused Neji until the kunais exploded and in their place were Kage Bunshins. He transformed Kage Bunshins into kunai and stored them into the shuriken. Neji looked around and saw out of all the kunai only 20 of them were Kage Bunshins. I have no choice. Naruto watched as Neji began to spin like a top, releasing some of his chakra. Hakusho Kaden, 8 trigrams, Palm's heavenly spin. Neji was suddenly encased in a dome of spinning chakra that sent all the clones backwards before destroying them. Neji stopped spinning and smirked at the surprised look of Naruto. This is the absolute defense of the Hyuga clan, you cannot win. Naruto bit his lower lip and looked on with frustration. Shit, I didn't think that the Hyugas would have something like that. Naruto began to think as he dropped into a defensive stance. But just because it's strong doesn't mean it can't be stopped. Neji was doing his own observation on Naruto as the two seemed be scanning the other. If I get too close, I run the risk of getting caught with that paralyzing seal. Neji thought as he tried get around Naruto. But if I get too far away, I can't attack and he can blast me with his seals. I'm going to have to go in fast, it is my only option. Neji tightened his gentle fist stance. XXX Hiyashi leaned forward in shock as he recognized the stance Neji was in. It can't be. Hanabi looked at her father, who bit his lip and looked a little nervous. What is wrong with father? Hanabi thought with a slightly raised eyebrow. XXX Naruto looked at Neji with a bit of confusion before Neji spoke up. You're within my field of divinity. This confused Naruto until he heard Neji call out his attack. Hake Rokujuyan Sho, 8 Triggermas 64 palms. Naruto eyes widened as Neji spun and was in arm's length within a few seconds. Neji took his chance and launched his attack, nailing Naruto in his chest. Neji kept the attack up, but unknown to him a kunai behind him erupted and transformed into a clone that jumped at him. Thanks to his Byakugan, Neji saw the clone and turned on a dime and nailed it in the chest, destroying it. Neji turned once more to finish his assault, but Naruto quickly reached forward and touched his arm. Neji placed a fairly large amount of chakra into his palm and slammed it into Naruto's gut, sending Naruto backwards. Naruto was sent skidding across the ground until he came to rest about 10 feet away from Neji. Naruto collapsed onto one knee and held on to his stomach as he began to struggle to breathe. I told you, fate has predicted that I would. Why? Neji stopped when he couldn't move and saw Naruto holding a tiger seal. Got you. Naruto stood up, much to the pain in his legs. I don't understand. Neji looked at Naruto confused. I don't understand how you can have so much hatred inside of you. I mean, what did the main branch do to you that was so bad? Neji began to chuckle and looked at Naruto with anger and pain in his eyes. You want to know why I hate the main branch? Neji began to build up chakra until he shattered the seal Naruto placed on him. Naruto gritted his teeth. He knew the seal wouldn't hold someone who had perfect chakra control, but he hoped it would hold him off long enough. I will tell you the reason behind my hatred. Neji took off his headband and revealed a seal on his forehead. XXX. The old man was rocking back and forth on his rocking chair when a crack of a twig caught his attention. He looked over and saw Ashiki, with Denpa, and the brown-haired man, but all three of them were bleeding and covered in burns. You made it back. What happened to you? The old man looked at the three with worry in his eyes. Well, apparently when they were draining his chakra in that cage, it wasn't going to the seals. Ashiki laid his brother and the man down and looked at the old man. They were storing it inside containers set to explode with the amount of chakra inside of them when the cage was lowered without the key. We nearly got disintegrated by the explosion. The only thing that saved us was him making a barrier around us. The two looked at the man, who looked a little bit more pale than before. I hope this guy is worth the trouble we went to get him. Trust me, he is. The old man watched as the man in question opened his gray eyes. Welcome back, Kakuheiki, barrier wall. He smiled at him with kindness.